In a world where everyone is desperately trying to be heard, explaining, proving, defending, there's one type of person who quietly rises above everyone else. The person who speaks less. The person who stays calm. The person who doesn't react. And while others mistake silence for weakness, they never realize the truth. Silence is power. The moment you stop talking, people start paying attention. They wonder what you're thinking. They question themselves. And they feel an invisible pressure that you never had to say a single word to create. Your silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. And today, you're about to understand why the strongest people are often the quietest ones. Silence is one of the most underestimated psychological tools in human interaction. Most people talk without thinking, react without control, and reveal too much without realizing it. But those who understand the hidden power of silence instantly gain an advantage. When you choose not to respond, you force others to reveal their intentions, their emotions, and even their weaknesses. When you hold your words back, you appear more confident, more intelligent, and far more in control. Silence creates mystery, authority, and emotional strength qualities that instantly elevate your presence in any situation. In this video, we are going to explore the deep psychology behind why saying nothing can make you stronger than those who talk the most. You'll learn how silence can shift power dynamics, boost confidence, expose manipulation, and increase respect without you lifting a finger. And by the end, you'll understand exactly how to use strategic silence to influence people, handle conflict, and protect your energy. This isn't about being quiet. This is about becoming powerful without ever raising your voice. Silence is one of the most uncomfortable human experiences because it exposes people to their own thoughts. When you stay quiet during a conversation, the other person instantly becomes more aware of themselves, what they're saying, how they look, whether they made a mistake. This internal spotlight creates a subtle psychological pressure that most people cannot tolerate for long. They start filling the silence with explanations, extra details, and unnecessary information, revealing far more than they planned. Negotiators, interrogators, and high-status individuals use this intentionally. They know that silence forces the other person to speak first, confess first, or adjust their behavior. It gives you the advantage of listening while they crumble under their own discomfort. Silence also signals that you're analyzing, thinking, and observing. This makes people nervous because they don't know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, or what you're planning next. The mind hates uncertainty, and silence is pure uncertainty. It breaks confidence, slows down aggression, and shifts control toward the person who speaks the least. When you master silence, you're no longer reacting, you're directing the entire psychological environment without saying a word. People who talk too much often appear insecure. They over-explain, over-justify, and try too hard to prove themselves. But someone who speaks less appears grounded, stable, and self-assured. Silence suggests that you don't need validation, you aren't seeking attention, and you don't fear the opinions of others. It communicates power without any effort. Confident individuals never rush to fill gaps in conversation because they're comfortable with themselves. They don't feel pressured to speak just to avoid awkwardness. They choose their words intentionally, which makes every sentence feel more meaningful. Even in arguments, a quiet person seems calm and emotionally controlled, something people naturally respect. In professional environments, silence shows composure. In social settings, silence creates intrigue. In personal relationships, silence shows strength and emotional discipline. When you pause before responding, people assume you're thinking deeply, even if you're simply deciding whether the conversation is worth your time. This is why quiet people often receive more respect. Their silence acts like a filter, removing the unnecessary, amplifying the essential. Instead of trying to prove themselves, they let their presence speak. And presence, when paired with silence, becomes a signal of undeniable confidence. Emotions are powerful, and most people express them the moment they feel them: anger, frustration, confusion, fear. But silence gives you the space to process emotions before releasing them. When someone triggers you, the first reaction is rarely the smartest one. Staying silent interrupts that emotional reflex. It stops you from saying something impulsive or damaging. Silence provides a mental pause. It's the gap between stimulus and response, a moment where clarity forms. Instead of reacting emotionally, you shift into observation mode. You notice tone, body language, motives, and underlying emotions. This can completely change how you interpret a situation. In arguments, silence prevents escalation. When someone expects you to fight back and you don't, their emotional momentum collapses. Your calmness forces them to confront their own behavior rather than your reaction. In manipulation attempts, silence exposes the other person's intent. They might repeat themselves, change their story, or try harder to convince you revealing what they really want. The truth is, silence is emotional armor. It protects your energy by not letting others pull you into their chaos. And in that quiet space, you regain control of your thoughts, your feelings, and ultimately, the situation. Human psychology is simple. The more scarce something is, the more valuable it becomes. This applies not only to money or resources, but to words as well. If you speak constantly, people start tuning you out. Your words lose weight because they're always available. But if you speak selectively, people pay attention. They lean in. They listen. When you choose silence first and speech second, you create a sense of importance around your voice. People start wondering what you think. They expect your words to be meaningful, intelligent, or impactful because you only speak when it's necessary. This increases your influence without increasing your volume. In leadership, the most respected figures are those who stay quiet during discussions and speak only at the end. Their words sound like conclusions, not opinions. In social circles, the quiet person becomes the observer, and their rare comments carry surprising weight. In personal relationships, silence signals maturity and thoughtfulness. By speaking less, you give your words room to breathe. They land harder, hit deeper, and control the emotional rhythm of the conversation. Silence sharpens your voice like a blade saw when you finally speak. It cuts through the noise. The unknown is powerful, and silence creates that mystery instantly. When people can't predict what you're thinking, they become cautious around you. They speak more carefully, behave more respectfully, and try harder to understand you. Mystery is influence, and silence is how you create it. When you don't reveal everything about yourself, others begin filling in the gaps. They make assumptions, often positive ones. He must be confident. She seems really intelligent. He looks like someone who knows more than he says. This psychological projection boosts your perceived strength without you doing anything. Silence also protects your personal information. When you reveal less, people have less to use against you. This is why manipulators struggle with silent people. They can't read them or predict their reactions. Mystery also creates attraction. Silence adds depth, making you appear more complex and intriguing. People feel drawn to someone who isn't constantly broadcasting their thoughts and emotions. In every social dynamic, the quietest person often holds a unique power. The power of uncertainty. People fear what they can understand, and they respect what they can't. Easily access. Your silence becomes a barrier that only the worthy can cross. Arguments are battles of emotion and ego. Most people rush to defend themselves, raise their voice, or fight back instantly. But strategic silence changes the entire dynamic. When someone expects you to react and you don't, they lose control of the argument. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their behavior back at them. When you remain quiet, the other person begins questioning their tone, their words, and their position. Their anger fades because they have nothing to push against. They start adjusting their behavior, often becoming calmer, softer, and more rational. Silence is not avoidance. It's dominance through restraint. In conflict, silence prevents escalation. Instead of adding fuel to the fire, you remove oxygen. You maintain control over your emotions and force the other person to confront their own. You also gain time to analyze the situation. What triggered them? What do they really want? What is the smartest response? Silence also exposes manipulation. A manipulator relies on emotional reactions. When you stay calm and silent, their tactics fail. They become frustrated or over-explain, revealing their real intentions. Strategic silence turns conflict into an advantage. You don't win by shouting louder, you win by making them feel the weight of their own words. The less you speak, the more you notice. Silence opens your senses, allowing you to observe details that others miss. You hear the shifts in someone's tone, the hesitation before their answer, the nervous habits, the contradictions in their statements. While others are focused on talking, you're focused on understanding. Observation is a superpower in psychology. It helps you read people's emotions, detect lies, and understand hidden motives. Silent people often develop sharper intuition because they're not distracted by their own voice. They analyze before reacting. They think before speaking. This makes them appear wise, even if they're simply paying attention.